Again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's MSDN webcast, Incorporating Business Intelligence and Applications Using SQL Server Reporting Services in Visual Studio. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. We have Shamez Rajan. Shamez is a Program Manager for SQL Reporting Services with the Microsoft Corporation. And without any further delay, I will turn the floor over to Shamez.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Shamez, one of the program managers in the SQL Server Reporting Services team. And with us, we also have Brian Welker here, who is our group program manager, and he will be answering your questions today. Brian is one of the core people in the team. He knows the product really well. So I recommend that you will feel free to ask as many questions as you can and get first-hand response from Brian. So we are here today to talk about how you can incorporate business intelligence in your applications that you build using Visual Studio 2005 and using components provided by SQL Server Reporting Services that ship with VS 2005. I usually prefer demonstrating features in the tool, and I try avoiding PowerPoint decks as much as possible. But I'm usually not very successful. So today we do have some slides. However, I do promise that I will show a number of good demos today. Our agenda is pretty much focused on various scenarios. We'll start out with a brief overview of the benefits of integrating reporting services in your applications. And then I will look at a series of demos for how you can utilize the reporting component that in your application, showing various common scenarios, which include using your component in server mode or in local mode, and I will explain those as we go through. And I'll also show how you can use your report viewer component using object data sources, which you may also call business objects. And then finally, we'll take a quick look at how you can add the BI business intelligence functionality in your ASP.NET application. When developers build business applications and when they show their data, there are a number of common things they want to do. For instance, they may want to filter data, or they may want to sort the data or group the data, or they may want to add aggregations to the data. They'd also maybe like to present data in various forms, maybe in a list or a table or a crosstab, which we also call a matrix. And sometimes maybe they want to show charts. Moreover, the developers may want some interactivity with the data. They may want the users to be able to show data or hide data. They may want them to be able to jump to specific locations within the list or the table. So these are some of the common scenarios. Other common scenarios would be that you want your customers to be able to go print the data. Or sometimes you want them to be able to export the data from the app to maybe Microsoft Office Excel or to a PDF format. So all of these common scenarios I talked about, a developer can write these things and add to their app from scratch. But when you do that, it adds a lot of complexity. And it also adds a lot of work. And it reduces the amount you spend on building your application and solving real business problems. With the components that SQL Server Reporting Services provides, you can get all of these features for free, out of the box. The components have been designed to work out of the box with very minimal work from your side. The other great thing is that if your end users who you give your applications to have access to Visual Studio, they can build even more reports. And maybe they can drop them in some locations where you can pick it up or your app can pick it up from. For instance, they could put it on a server or on a file share, on a folder, and then you, in your app, you can pull those and add it to your app and extend it further on the fly. So a number of these benefits for using this component we talked about. And the big takeaway is that this component enables you to become more productive in solving your business problems. One other thing, another important point is that once you integrate this component and you scale up and you start using the SQL Server reporting server itself, you can get great features like security and caching and also scheduling and delivery of your reports. You can actually schedule the execution of your report at a specific time. And you can push that report to your users through either email or by dropping them in some file share. So let's see what we ship in Visual Studio 2005. We ship a control called Report Viewer Control, and we also ship a Report Designer with Visual Studio. The Designer and the Viewer, they are included in the standard edition of Visual Studio and above. So that means they are not included in the Express version of the languages. So you don't get them in VB Express or C# Express. However, if you have downloaded the Web Developer Express, then you can download our Report Viewer Control and it will work in Web Developer Express. Once you get our control, there are no runtime restrictions. You can freely redistribute this control to your customers as you wish. So let's look at the different modes that the report control works in. As I mentioned, the report viewer control works in two modes: a server mode, which is also known as a remote mode, and it works in client mode. In the server mode, the data source for your report comes from the server, and it exists in the server. All the processing happens on the server side. So you build your report inside Visual Studio, then you publish that report to your server, and then you can view that report either through Report Manager, which I'm going to show you in a bit, or you can view the report in your application in remote mode. So let's take a quick look here. Here I have Visual Studio with me, and I am going to create a new project. And you can see here that on the project type here, I have Business Intelligence projects, and I have the other language projects. If you buy SQL Server 2005, then you get Visual Studio, Business Intelligence Studio with it, and you will see that you can build analysis services report applications, you can build integration services projects, and you can also build a report server project. So I'm going to go ahead and build a report server project. If you do not have SQL Server 2005, you may not see this, which is okay. Today we are going to spend time on the local mode. So I'm just giving you an introduction here how the server mode works. So we'll go ahead and create a project here. So you can see I start out with a blank project. I have nothing here. I'll go ahead and add a new data source. I'll call this data source AdventureWorks. I'll go ahead and connect to my local SQL Server on my machine using integrated Windows authentication. Go ahead and connect to the database. And I have my data source. I can go ahead here and add a new report item. I will use the data source that I just created. And now here, this is driving me through a wizard. A report wizard is helping me build the report. I'll go ahead and use the query builder. Pardon me here, I just got a crash. I'm going to just restart Visual Studio here. All right, we're back. I'll go ahead and add a data source here. Then call it AdventureWorks. Go ahead and add a new report. Use my data source that I just created. Come here and use the query builder. Not sure why I got a crash before, but let's see. I hope it works this time. Okay, and I will go ahead and add a table. Click the contact table, add that to my query. I close this, and I will go ahead and select some fields. My first name and last name, maybe email address and phone number. And that's it. That's all I need right now. Go ahead and proceed with my wizard. And then it asks me whether I want a tabular or a matrix table. So I'll pick a tabular report. And I will go ahead and add all of my fields in my details section. And then it asks me which style I want to use. I will go ahead and just pick one of the styles. Maybe I like the blue one. Go ahead, use that, and I'll call this report Report 1. And here I have my report. I can go and preview the data. There's a preview tab. It goes and the processing is done, and here I see my report. You come back, there's a layout tab here. This is the designer. In the designer, I can move things around. There's a table. All of this was created using the wizard. And later on, I'm going to show you how we do this from scratch. So go ahead and expand this a little bit. I'll go ahead and select this and reduce the font to 8. Go ahead and preview that. And here you can see my changes. I will go ahead and publish this report now to a server. So I come here, and on my project properties, there is a target server URL node. This is the URL of where we are going to post the reports. I'm going to say localhost report server. Go ahead and click OK. I'll right-click again here, and I'll say deploy. So it's deploying to the web server right now, report server. It says succeeded. So I'll bring up, this is what I said before, report manager. Just refresh that. And Webcast 1. This is a project I created. If I click on that, there's report 1. I click on it. And there's the reports that I just created. And now it's published to my report server. And one of the ways of looking at the report is through the report manager. And this is the report manager application. If you buy SQL Server 2005 and you install that, you automatically get this with SQL Server 2005, the report manager web application. So that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at the report is in your application. So I will go ahead and create a Visual Basic application here. And it's a rich Windows application. I have my form here. I want to be able to show the same report that's sitting on my report server. So if on the left side, on the toolbar, under the data category, you see a report viewer item. This is the report viewer control that we ship with Visual Studio 2005. I'll go ahead and drag and drop it on my form. It shows this smart task here and is asking me which report do I want to show. So I'll go ahead and choose here and say server report. So I'll click on the server report. It's asking for report server URL, and which is localhost report server. And now it's asking for report path. This is the same path that where the report is hosted. So we'll go look here. It's under Webcast 1, and it's called report 1. So I'll go ahead and type this in here. Webcast 1, report 1. And I'll go ahead and dock the control in the form, and I'll run this form. Run the application, and let's see if we see the report in server mode. And the same report now is inside my rich Windows application using the report viewer control in server mode. But I went and made a request to the server. The processing happened on the server side. The report was processed and rendered by them, and they pass it to the report viewer control, and it's displayed here. If you look at the report viewer control, there are a lot of features that come with it. I can move from one page to the other page here in the toolbar. I can send it to the printer if I want to. I can export the reports to XML or a comma-separated value file, a TIFF file, you want a PDF, or an HTML, or to Microsoft Excel. From within here, I can zoom the report. I can even go find, if I wanted to find a record or item. I'll type the text I want to search for. I click Find. It goes ahead and finds the first instance. I click on the Next button. It goes ahead and scrolls down and finds the next instance. So all these features you get inside the report viewer control for free. This is the server mode, and I will now want to show you how this report control works in local mode. Going back to our slide deck here. So in the local scenario, the report is added locally to your project. You build the report inside Visual Studio, and it's embedded inside your application. We don't read the report from the server. All the processing happens on the local client side. And in Windows application, by default, when you build the application, the report gets embedded inside the application's executable file. In web applications, however, your reports will be added to the server along with the other web pages on that report. So let's take a quick look at how this is designed inside Visual Studio. As you will see in the next demo, the whole process around creating local reports is integrated really well with Visual Studio. Building a report is very similar to building a data-bound form or a web page. We leverage the use of data sets. We use data sets in getting our data for the reports. You can make use of the table adapter configuration wizard and also the data set designer if you wish to set your query and all that. Once you're ready with your data, you can make use of that in the report. You can still have all the interactivity. You can have the sorting and the drill through and the drill down features. All those are available in the local mode. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at how that happens. So go ahead and create a new project here. I'll discard this one that I just created. Go ahead and create a Windows application using Visual Basic. All right, so here I have my form, and what I'll do is I want to add a local report here. So I'll go ahead and in my project add a new item. And when you do the add new item, in this add new item dialog, there's a template for building a report. I'll go ahead and add a report. I'll call it my customer list. and add that. Here is my designer. This is the designer that we saw before in when I was building a server report. This time around, I'm building this in the client. And now, maybe you noticed already there's a slight difference here. There are no tabs here. Before you saw a tab for data, you saw a tab for layout, and a tab for preview. In the local mode, we don't need the data tab because the data is coming from the data set from within Visual Studio. And we don't have the preview functionality inside the local mode. So what I'll do is, now that I want to build my report in local mode, I'll need some data. I'll go to the data sources window and add a new data source. For this instance, I'll go ahead and pick a database. I use my AdventureWorks connection. I add that connection. And here it will list all the tables that are available in the database. Go ahead and click on my context table and hit finish. So if you look here in my data sources window, I now have my context table. If you look at Solution Explorer, I now have this new AdventureWorks data set. This is the data set which is displayed here, and the table and all the fields inside. So now I want to build this report. I will go ahead and maybe add a title to my report. So I'll bring a text box here. Add a title, customer list. I can go ahead and increase the font here. Make it 14 points. Increase the size. I can also change the color. Maybe make it blue. I can go ahead and change the background and maybe pick a light gray or maybe something like that. Oh, as you can see, I am not a really good graphics designer. So go ahead and add my title here. I will go ahead and bring a table control here. And this is where I will list all my records. I can go ahead and bring some of the fields from my data sources window. I'll bring in the first name, for example, and I'll bring in my maybe last name and email address maybe. If I want to add one more field, you make some room here. To slide through, I can right-click on one of the columns here and say Insert Column to the right. So it gives me a new column. Go ahead and bring in the phone field. Now, as you noticed, I was dropping these fields in here. Automatically, I was getting the titles here added. So the report designer is pretty smart. When you add a field inside the details section, automatically it gives you the title inside the header. I go ahead and I will delete the footer. I don't need that. And this is my basic report. I can go ahead and make this bold just to show that these are my titles. I can go ahead and select all of these and give a border to each cell. So I go set the border style to solid. I can also give a border to the whole tree. Go ahead and say border solid, and I will go ahead on my form. Now I want to see that report that I just built. So same deal again. I will go bring my report viewer control and drop it on the form. This time, I am not going to be reading the report. I'm not going to be getting the report from the server. I'm going to get the report locally. And inside my report that I added, customer list.rdlc, that's my local report. And RDLC, C stands for the client, so it's working in the client mode. And I will go ahead and I want to show this report here. So again, using my smart task here, smart panel, I'll go ahead and select the RDLC. I will dock this inside my parent container and run this. So the app should be, the application should be coming up shortly. Here it is. And here's my app. This is the report that I just built right now. And again, you have the same features that we saw before. One thing to note, however, is that in client mode, if I want to export the report, if you're not using server mode, in client mode, you can export it to Microsoft Excel and to PDF, which are really common exports people want to do. But all the other features are there. You get them out of the box for free, and you can make use of these. All right, so in this scenario, I was reading the data from the server. Although I had the report, I have the RDLC inside my application, but the data was coming from a server. In other scenarios, you may want to use data completely locally, either in an XML file or using SQL Express, or maybe a Microsoft Access MDB file. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and create a new project, discard this one, and I'll show you how we can read data from an XML file. So again, go ahead, build a Windows application. And I will right-click here and add an XSD file. So go ahead and my demos. And there's a customer's XSD file that I created using from an XML file. I created an XSD file. That's my data set. Just because I added the customers.xsd file, if I go to my data sources window, automatically it shows me the data set, the table inside the data set. So here it is. I will go ahead and add my reports. So add new item, add my customer reports. And this time around, what I'm going to do is I am going to bring in a table, same deal that I did before. And I am going to bring in my first name and my last name and my email address for my customer. So I did that. But this time around, I want to group my data by the city in which all these customers are located. So I can do that pretty easily inside my designer. I go ahead and right-click on my table, and I say Insert Group. So it brings up this Properties window. I go ahead and call this my group city. And for the expression, it's asking me how do I want to group these. So I'll hit the down arrow there, and I'll go ahead and pick my city field. So it's going to now group by the city. It also asks me if I have different options here. Do I want a header? Yes, I want a header, but I don't want a footer. I'll go ahead and click OK there. So I get this new row here. This is my group. I will go ahead and add a new column. To the left, there's my new column I added, and I want to bring in my city field. And this time I'm going to drop it in the group row. When I edit there, automatically get my city title. I'll go ahead and bold all of these. What I also want to do is I want to show how many customers I have in that city. I want to show that here. So I'll go ahead, and if I right-click here, there's something called an expression builder. I'll click on the expression. It already shows me my field city. But to that, I also want to add let's say the number of customers. So what I do is I go to my common functions here, and inside my aggregates there's a count rows method. I'll pick that. So I want to close this, and I want to add my number of rows, and I want to close paren. So this is my expression. I want to show the city itself and how many customers are in that city. I can even add some more text here. So these many customers. And I'll click OK. And do the same thing. Go back here. to my form, I'll go ahead and bring in my report viewer control. And because I already have the report, I'll go ahead and select that. This is the report I want to show. And again, I'll dock this in here. And I'm going to run this. And when I run this, there will be no data inside the report. The reason is that I have added the XST, but I'm not reading the data from anywhere yet. So as soon as this form comes up, it should be coming up shortly, you can see that I have my report here, but it's empty. There's nothing inside because we haven't actually read the data yet. So let's go ahead and write some code to read the data in. So what I'll do is there's an XML file which already has all the data inside. I want to read that XML file into my report, and I'll show you that XML file. Go ahead and bring Explorer here. Inside my demos folder, control demo, there's this XML file. If I open this XML file, and here is all the data. What I want to do is I want to show this data inside my report. So I'll go ahead, inside my forms load event, I will go ahead and write code to read the XML. Now, in order to save time here, I already have the code snippets. I'll just go ahead and add that, and I'll walk you quickly through that. I'm creating a new data set inside my data, and I'm creating a new report data source. Now, my report data source here inside my data set, I'm reading the XML file. So it reads that XML data inside my data set. And then I go ahead and reset my report viewer. I set the processing mode to local, and I go ahead and tell the report viewer that we are using the customer, I think I called it the customer RDLC, I'll just make sure. Yeah, it's called the customer RDLC. So I tell my report that that's the report file I want to use. I go ahead and I set the name of my data source. I get that from my local reports. And I take the first table. That's the only table inside my data set. And I go ahead and set the data source value to the table. And finally, I go ahead and tell report viewer that here is my data source. And I go ahead and refresh the report. So this time now, when I run the report, it should go ahead and read the data from the XML file and display the data in the report viewer control. All right, and here is my report. Again, not a good graphic designer, so you don't see it's not looking that great, but we can go and make some changes there. I can go ahead here in my report designer, and I can lay this out differently. I can change font and all that, and I can put the borders the way we did before, and the way you please. You can modify the report the way you like. So that was how you could add a report using a local XML file. So the key takeaway in this project is that my reports as well as my data is all local now. Nothing is coming from the server. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other common scenario of building local reports. One thing that I wanted to mention is that the report viewer control that you saw, you can customize it as you please. You saw that in the remote mode, I was able to set the path. You can also supply the report definition through a stream, or you can load it through a file system, or the way we did as an embedded resource inside the Windows application. when you're using the report in server mode, you can also take advantage of how the parameters are displayed. Any parameters that are required for your query, you can also supply that. And then you can also customize the toolbar. You can set the background color. You can remove some of the buttons. All that is customizable. You can actually even remove the whole toolbar and just use the report viewer control as a rich visualization for your data. All the events on the buttons of the toolbars, you can trap those events, and you can write code and customize how those buttons are going to behave. The other scenario I wanted to show was the object binding, the business object binding I talked about earlier. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that when building, when you build enterprise applications, it's really common to have business objects. Now, when I showed you the XML part and I showed you the local data, that can be very handy. But for enterprise applications, most of the time, developers use middle-tier business objects. And within those business objects, developers can have more control, and they can handle the business rules quite well. Having said that, it's great that Visual Studio has, great support for reading data through business objects, and I'm going to show you that. And it's called object binding. Your business objects, your classes, these classes, they do not need to implement any specific interface. The class is treated as a table, and all the public properties inside the class are treated as fields inside the table. So it's really cool how you can make use of that. And also you use a collection, either like an array or a list, or any class that implements IEnumerable to return a collection of all your rows inside the table. So you would your list would return instances of your class, maybe a customer class. So let's take a look, and we'll walk through that and see how that works. So I'll go into that demo. Again, I will discard this, and let's start again from a scratch application. Go ahead and build another Windows application. So this here, I have my my form, and what I want to do now is I want to add my business objects to this project. I'll go ahead and add a class, add a new class, and I'll call this class a customer class. Add that, and I have my customer class. I'll go ahead and I will also add another helper class, which is going to read the data and populate my collection using the customer class. So I'll go ahead and call this a customer file parser and add that here. So I have two classes. I'll go to my, should be coming up shortly. Here is my customer class. What I'll do is, in order again to save time here, I have the code for that. I'll go ahead and bring the customer class code here and dump it. There is nothing special in here. All this class does is it's a set of public properties. If I drop down here, you can see all of these properties here. And all they do is return the value for each property. And I'll go ahead and add the code to my file parser, and I'll walk you quickly through that. So delete that and bring in my code for my customer file parser. Again, nothing special about this. There's only one method here that parses a file. What I'm going to be doing is I'll pass in a CSV file this time, and in return, I will get a list of customers. You can see here, nothing special. I've created a customer list, which is of type list. It's a generic list of type customer. And customer was my business object. And then I have this parser class that basically it's the class that ships with Visual Basic. And it's in the Visual Basic runtime in the file IO namespace, and it just helps me populate. It reads in the CSV file and populates the class. So I'll go ahead and use this class. Now what I want to do is I want to add a data source that actually reads data from my business object. So I'll go ahead and into the data source window, and you see that it's blank. There's nothing here right now. I'll go ahead and add new data source. I'll go ahead and pick object as my binding here. I'm going to use object binding. However, when I go here and if I look for that class, my customer class and my customer parser, nothing shows up here. The reason it doesn't show up, and it's something that you need to note, is that you need to build your class, build your project before you can see it there. So I'll go ahead and build my project. It's building right now. And say succeeded. And now I'll go ahead and add the data source. Again, click on object. And this time when I expand, you see that I see my customer class there. This is the class I want to bind to. So go ahead, hit next, and I pick my, my customer class, and I hit finish there. So there you go. You can see that with the feature of object binding inside Visual Studio, automatically the data sources window displays all the public properties that I had in that class. It's treating this as a table and the fields. So it's a really powerful and really cool feature that you can make use of. So I'll go ahead and in my project I'll add a report. Go ahead, add a new item and click report. Again, I'm going to say customer and click on add. So I have my customer RDLC file there. And this time around, instead of bringing in a table, how about we see a chart? So go ahead and bring a chart control in here. Go ahead and expand my report a little bit. Make this chart a bit wider. And now I need to supply the fields for the chart. So what I want to show is I want to show a simple chart. And I basically go ahead and first change the chart type to a simple bar. There are different types you can use. I'll go ahead and pick simple bar. And then for data, I want to show my sales, my number of orders actually, in my for my company. So what I want to do is I go to my data source and I'll pick for each city. I want to show the number of orders. So I'll go ahead and bring the city field and I'll drop it inside the category fields down here. And there's also this num orders, which is the number of orders. I'll go ahead and drag this and put it inside my data fields. And that's all I need to do, and I've already created a chart. I'll go to my form. Go ahead and bring a report viewer control here. And the Smart Task shows up. I will go ahead and dock this inside my parent window. And I'll go ahead and pick that report that I just created. And again, if I run this report, it will not show anything right now because there is no data inside. The report is running. Here is my report. As you can see, the chart is empty. Nothing is showing because we haven't written the code to read the data from the CSV file. So again, to save time, I have the code here. What I'm doing is, again, resetting my report viewer, setting my processing mode to local, and then I'm setting, giving the name of my report, and here I called it just making sure I give it the right name. It's Windows Application 3.customer.rdlc. I'll go ahead and do the same thing I did before, get my data source, and this time I'm creating an instance of my customer file parser. It's the class that I added, my helper class that will read the data and create a collection for me of type customer. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then I am right here, I'm passing it the file name of where to read the data from. I set that as a data source for my report viewer, and I refresh. So go ahead and run this. So you can see here that I'm getting a lot of cities here, and it's all populated. And it's kind of hard to read because there's the list of my cities is pretty long. So what I want to do is I actually just want to see maybe top 10 cities in terms of their number of orders. So I can go do that inside the chart itself. Go back to my designer, and I'll right-click on the chart and go ahead and open the Properties dialog. Within the Properties dialog, there's a Data tab for the chart. I go in the Data, and there's this category of groups. I can click on that, and I can go and edit that. And inside there's a Filters tab. Go and edit that, and in the Filters, I will go ahead and set a new expression. What I want to do is I want to say the sum of my go ahead and sum of my number of orders, and I want to get the total of number of orders for that city. And what I want to do is I want the top 10. So there's an operator, which is top N operator. Go ahead and pick that. And in here, instead of saying 10, if I said 10, it's not going to recognize because it considers 10 as a string. So you need to say equals to 10 so that it's a number. It understands it's a value. So it matches that. Go ahead and click OK there. Click OK and run the report one more time. And this time around, it only shows me the top 10 cities. What I can do is one more thing I want to add here in my chart. It's hard to tell exactly what is the total number of orders for each of these. So I'll go ahead and add something here so I can see all these value points. So go ahead and do that. Again, going to my designer, right-click and go into the Properties dialog. Going to my data again, and under the values, go ahead and click the Edit button. And inside the edit, there's this point labels. So go ahead and click on that and say Show Point Labels. So check that. And in here, again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm building an expression, and I want to use my same aggregated function for my num orders field. And you can see that inside the expression editor, I have IntelliSense. It lists all my fields that are available. Go ahead and pick that, and all the properties for that. Go ahead and pick value, and I'm set. Click OK. Click OK here, and OK one more time. And this time around, you can see all of these are the data points are showing inside the chart. Go ahead and run it. And now you can see that in my chart, I have the values showing right there. Again, you can use your creativity. You can make the charts look really nice using the Properties dialog and make changes as you like. Again, the key takeaway from this project was that I used object binding. The data did not come from a server or from an MDB file. It came from my business objects. I used my customer business object. Again, customer business object was just a class with all the public properties. And this class gets treated inside Visual Studio as a table, and all the public properties are fields. And then you use the collection, as I showed you inside this class, that a collection of customer actually gives populates the table for you with the instances of customer. All right, so moving along here, let me get back to my presentation slides. And one last thing that I wanted to show was how you can get this business intelligence functionality that we just saw inside the web application. So I'll go ahead and do that. As I mentioned earlier, we also ship report viewer control for the web. So when I create my next demo that you will see that I'll have a web version of the report viewer control, It's as easy to program it as the Windows application one, and by default, it renders data asynchronously, so pages are loaded quickly. If you use reports in server mode, you can download an ActiveX control that will also help you to print your data inside from within the web page. All right, so let's move on to our last and final demo here. I will go ahead and discard this and create a new website this time. Go ahead and call this my Webcast 1. So here I am now inside Visual Studio creating a web application. In my default page, what I want to do is, again, report viewer control right there. Bring that in. Now this is the report viewer control for the web. As you can see that it looks very similar to the Windows one. You get all the features there for moving from page to page, and also exporting features and all that, and also searching capabilities. So it's very similar. I'll go ahead and open up this Smart Task here, and it says choose report. I don't have any report right now, so I'll go ahead and design a new report. When I click on that, automatically I get my RDLC edit here, and I have my data sources window, and I have no data right now. So I'll go ahead and add a data source here. And the data set designer shows up, and it walks me through creating my query. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll use the Adventure Works. I'll go ahead and use my query builder. I can click on that query builder. I will again use my contact table, add that, close. Again, I want my first name, my favorite fields, my last name, and my email address. That's good for right now. Click OK. I have my query. Go ahead and use that, and I click on Finish. And it says you do not have the primary keys, which is okay. I do not want to add them for now. And I have my data right there. So I have my first name, last name, and my email address. I'll do the same simple thing here. Bring in my table control, and bring in my first name, and my last name, and my email address. Maybe also go ahead and I won't give you the title here. I'll add the title inside inside my web page. Go ahead and bring this up a little bit here. I will go ahead and select this, make it bold. Maybe change the background color to something different, maybe brown, and change the fore color to maybe white. Increase font a little bit, make it 14. So here I have my report. I'll go ahead, go back to my web page. Inside my page, I'll go ahead and add my title here, customer list. Go ahead, make that bold. Again, in my Smart Task here, I'll go ahead and select that report that I just added, and I will run this web page. It's asking me to modify my web.config file and say, okay, go ahead and do that. It brings up Internet Explorer. It should be rendering the report right now and should be displaying shortly. Obviously, the first instance will get delayed a little bit, but after that, once it's built, it becomes faster. can, the report is being generated and it should show. So basically here is my report. Again, I didn't have to write any code, just using my designers I was able to achieve all that. Again, you can be more creative and do different kind of things that you like to do. And I will go ahead now and go back to my slide deck here. Go ahead and stop this. Okay, going back to my slide deck here. I wanted to close now. Basically, again, to summarize, we saw different scenarios. We saw the scenarios for server mode. We saw the viewing the report in local mode. And we also saw how we can use business objects to read data in. And we saw how you can see a report inside a web application. So I encourage you, if you haven't tried, go ahead and try using the report viewer control. Once you get comfortable, you can always scale up and use the server functionalities. Again, once you buy SQL Server, you can get integration services, analysis services, and take advantage of the other services that ship with SQL Server 2005. Also, there are a number of websites out there that can give you more help using this tool. And I will now transition to back to Tracy. There you go, Tracy.
Excellent. Thanks, Shamiz. Remember, for more information, everyone can print a PDF of today's session. And to do that, just go to the File menu or upper navigation bar. And we will get to any remaining questions and answers here shortly, so go ahead and feel free to continue to submit your questions now. Also, I'm going to be posting a survey here in just a minute. Please do take a moment to fill it out before you log off. We really do appreciate your feedback. And for any upcoming and previously recorded webcasts, you can go to microsoft.com/webcasts, and you can go here to access this webcast, which will be available for download in about 24 hours. Also, if you have any webcast content ideas, if there's something out there that you haven't seen yet, we'd love to hear from you. You can just follow this URL here. And if anyone's interested in getting a free 14-day trial of Microsoft Office Live Meeting, you can follow this link here. And for anyone who fills out the survey for today's webcast, you'll automatically be entered in to win this 30 GB video MP3 Windows Media Player. So it gives you a little incentive to do so today. And lastly, here's the survey. Please follow the links provided to complete today's webcast evaluation. And with that, I want to extend a special thank you to Shamiz for presenting today. Also, a big thank you to Brian Welker for logging in and managing and answering all the questions that we've thrown at him today. I'd also like to thank the audience for attending today's MSDN webcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude today's session. The audience may now disconnect from the audio portion of this presentation.